Hey, thank you for following the First Middle Church of Christ. Man, we're so grateful to have all those following us, and just amazing for you who are subscribed to our channel. And it's glad to see your messages, and that our messages that are powerful messages that are changing your lives and helping you in your walk. You know, we're here to celebrate the love of God through our powerful messages. And we invite you to join us on our journey of faith and fellowship by connecting with us on the social media platforms. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And that way you can stay updated on our inspirational content. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can experience our powerful sermons that can help you and encourage you in your walk with the Lord. And be sure to pass them along to your family and friends. They're great messages, powerful messages, can help you, encourage you, and strengthen you. By becoming a part of our online community, you have the opportunity to engage with fellow believers, be encouraged in your faith journey, and experience the transformative power of God's love through our messages. Together, we can spread the message of love and hope to a world that is full of darkness. Join us online and be a part of our growing community as we worship, learn, and serve together. Our message today is called "You Give Love a Bad Name," the story of Samson Delilah. Samson's birth was announced by the angel of the Lord in Judges 13. In fact, Samson is one of the few in scriptures whose birth was divinely pre-announced to his parents, Judges 13:3. He shares his honor with Isaac, John the Baptist, and Jesus. Samson, whose name means sunshine, was born sometime between 1045 BC and 1000 BC. Now, during a dark period of Israel's history, 7 times this nation had turned from God and now found themselves under the oppressive ruler of the Philistines. In Judges 13:3-5, it reads, "The angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah, wife, and said, 'Even though you have been unable to have children, you will soon become pregnant and give birth to a son. So be careful. You must not drink wine or any other alcoholic drink, nor eat of any forbidden fruit. You will become pregnant and give birth to a son, and his hair must never be cut, for he will be dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth. He will begin to rescue Israel from the Philistines.'" You see, Samson was born a Nazirite, meaning he was separated or set aside from God. This meant that he was not to drink wine or fruit of the vine. He couldn't go near or touch a dead body, a human, or even animal, nor could even cut his hair. Though he was set apart for special service to God, Samson ignored his Nazirite vows of godly devotion and relied upon his own strength and abilities rather than upon God's. Although God empowered him with supernatural strength to begin the deliverance of the people of Israel from the Philistines. In Judges 13:8 reads that then Manoah prayed to the Lord, saying, "Lord, please let the man of God come back to us again and give us more instructions about this son whom is to be born." So the angel appeared a second time. And Manoah replied, he said, "Let what you said unto her come to pass. How shall we order the child? And what shall be done with him?" The angel of the Lord instructed him more carefully. "She must not eat grapes or raisins, drink wine or any other alcoholic drink, or eat any forbidden fruit." Consider the Nazirite vow in Numbers chapter 6. No wine or strong drink, which means vinegar, liquor, grapes, moist or dry. Not to cut hair for length of vow. No touching of a dead body, not even touch a dead family member either. Later he will be violated of all this. In Judges 14:1-3, one day when Samson was in Timnah, one of the Philistine women caught his eye. When he returned home, he told his father and mother, "A young Philistine woman from Timnah caught my eye, and I want to marry her and get her for me." And his father and mother objected. He said, "Isn't there even a woman in our tribe or among all the Israelites that you can marry?" They asked. "Why must you go all the way to the pagan Philistines to find a wife?" Samson told his father, "Get her for me. She looks good to me." It was his wickedness for the Philistine women that did him in. The lust of the eye, like a lot of us have today, the lust of the eye, looking at pornography, looking at the Playboy, Penthouse, Hustler, looking at the magazines with the women because we lust after them, lusting after women in tight clothing, showing it off. It's not for sale, take it out of the showcase. But yet, His passion for women was more important to him than God's expressed will. In Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 3 to 4, we read that you must not intermarry with them. Do not let your daughters or sons marry their children and daughters, for they will lead your children away from me to worship other gods. And we have seen this throughout, even with the Solomon, where he had the many wives that pulled him away from God, and he began to worship pagan gods near the end of his life. God says, don't intermarry these people because they will lead you astray from me. And in Judges 14, verses 1 through 15, it was during this wedding to a Philistine woman, Samson was deceived and humiliated by his wife and wedding guests because Samson gave them a riddle and asked the 30 young men to solve it. Now in Judges 14, Samson says to them, let me tell you a riddle. If you solve my riddle during these 7 days of celebration, I will give you 35 linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing. But if you can't solve it, then you must give me 35 linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing. All right, they agreed. Let's hear the riddle. So he said, out of one who eats came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. 3 days later, they were still trying to figure it out. And on the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, entice your husband to explain the riddle for us, or we will burn down your father's house with you in it. Do you invite us to this party just to make us poor? The young men couldn't solve the riddle, so they told Samson's wife to go get the answer, or we're going to burn your house down with your father's house, and we're going to burn it down with you in it too. So she played a guilt on Samson by telling him, well, if you don't love me, you really don't love me, Samson. You hate me. Doesn't that sound familiar? Like today, women will play some guilt trips on people, especially on their husbands. Well, you don't really love me. You hate me. I know you do. So Samson tells her the answer, and she tells the 30 young men the answer to the riddle. So we see in Judges 14:18, so before sunset on the 7th day, the men of the town came to Samson with their answer. What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lime? Samson replied, if you hadn't plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't have solved my riddle. And then we see that the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, Samson. And he went down to the town of Ascalon, killed 30 men, took their belongings, and gave their clothing to the men who had solved the riddle. But Samson was furious about what had happened, and he went back home to live with his father and mother. So his wife was given in marriage to the man who had been Samson's best man at the wedding. And then he went out and caught 300 foxes, and he tied their tails together in pairs, and he fastened them to a torch of each of their tails, and he lit the torches, and he set the foxes through the fields of grain of the Philistines. He burned all the grain to the ground, including the sheaves and the uncut grain. He also destroyed the vineyard and olive groves. Because this angered Samson, he got revenge by killing 1,000 men with the jawbone of a donkey, as we read in the latter part of Judges 15. In Judges 16, by the end of what it was his passion and obsession for Delilah that led him to reveal his secret through his strength, his hair was shown by Delilah, so it was cut, and as a result, he was captured, he was blinded, and forced to grind grain for his enemy. When we play and sin long enough, we fall prey to the results of it. Samson's passion for women led to his downfall. Sin will lead you down. Sin will bring you down. And the longer we play in it, the more beautiful it becomes. Disobedience, defeat, disgrace, and destruction were his fatal course. Despite his having the Spirit of the Lord upon him, his sexual yearning of the flesh controlled his life. He was a womanizer. He chased after women. And for the world, in 1 John 2:16, for the world offers only a craving for physical pleasure, a craving for everything we see, and pride in our achievements and possessions. These are not from the Father, but from the world. He was courageous before men, but weak when it came to women. Lust of the eyes attracted us to things that we see and soon desire. Women became pleasant to Samson's eyes. Samson had great strength and could have great potential, but gave it up for sin. You see, sin will run deep in you and take hold of you, every thought and everything that you have, and will lead you astray. The deeper the sin, the more pleasant it looks, and the more blind we become. Samson was already spiritually blind way before his eyes were gouged out. Notice that his eyes were gouged out. Of all things that could have been done to him, they chose the eyes. Samson was attracted to women. The very thing that caused him to fall into sin was taken from him. You see, sin has consequences. We must know that sin has a blinding, numbing impact on us. Otherwise, we find ourselves ensnared by it, just as Samson did. Sin binds us, then it blinds us, and then it slowly and extraordinarily grinds away at us. In Judges 16:21, so the Philistines captured him and gouged out his eyes. They took him to Gaza, where he was bound with bronze chains and forced to grind grain in the prison. Sin will take us further than we ever intended to go. It will hold us longer than we may have intended to stay. And sin will cost us more than we intended to pay. And we must heed the stern warning. Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. Proverbs 4:23. God can use the wicked as well as the righteous to accomplish his will. And we also discover that our own righteousness or wickedness will not deter God from doing his will. Though God punishes wrongdoing, he may not wait in delivering the punishment, just as he did with Samson. Despite all of Samson's weaknesses, he did turn back to God before he died, and we read that in Judges 16:28-30. God in his sovereignty used Samson to fulfill his purpose. Samson's death did much to impede the oppressive actions of the Philistines. Samson's destruction of the temple of Dagon was a major factor in their downfall, but Samuel would later on, and the children of Israel 100 years later. God would rather forgive than to judge. And with the destruction of the temple of Dagon was a major factor in their downfall at Mizpah by Samuel and the children of Israel that come some 100 years later. 1 Samuel 7:7-14. Samson was the strongest man to ever live, but it was God who gave him the strength. More importantly, Samson let himself be used by God. We need to be like Samson to allow God to work in us and through us. God's willing to meet us right where we are right now and to take us where he wants us if we are willing to let him.